the
afternoon and
best.
welcome to this edition of the People Progressing podcast. And I am so excited to have Dan Miller on today. I got to hear him speak last week, and I am just infatuated with him, to be honest with you, and what he does for people in the nutrition world and helping you live a longer, healthier, more stress-free life is amazing. And I'm just going to give you one quote from Dan, and we're going to kind of let him go here. He wants to know why you wake up every day, and that's important to him to know. That's his purpose. And Dan, excuse me, how I start this every time is I just ask every one of my guests where you grew up, what'd you like to do as a kid, and what kind of influences you had to get you where you are now. So why don't you take it from there, and then we got a lot to go over today.
Yeah, man. Hey, appreciate you. I grew up in Bismarck, North Dakota. So that's 47 years of my life was spent there. And then all over the rest of the country after that. I've lived in many, many places. But, I think my biggest influence, I got to give this all to my dad. And not because my dad was a real positive influence, but because my dad was an influence of, hey, don't do this. Right? Married to my mom, unhappy all the time, unless he's drunk. Now, then he's super giggly and fun. So, my brother and I were lucky enough to grow up with the happy drunk dad, not the punchy drunk dad. But it really didn't feel like there was a parent guiding me there.
Yeah,
It felt just more like okay, that's dad, right? There
right.
was no mentorship or guidance. So when I was 12, I started studying martial arts. And that became my primary tribe was, the people at martial arts, the instructor at the martial arts school, the old world Korean grandmaster, the former South Korean soldier that led the organization was my biggest mentor growing up. More and then a really tall cowboy from Glendive, Montana, named Bill. He was more like my dad than my dad. So growing up, I was heavily influenced by mentalities of the old Korean Taekwondo black belts, like the old school stuff, not the sport fighting stuff, but the real old school martial artists. And I think that really formed who I am today, more than I could imagine anything else doing it.
And what got you into what you're doing now, what you're giving back to people? I'll give you a quote that I took from your talk the other day. The body should live to 110 to 120 years old.
Yeah.
What got you into nutrition and helping us all figure this out and be healthier and all that? What gives you that purpose in your life to do that?
Well, I started teaching martial arts at 13. I'd been training for a year. I was being that, assistant instructor, teaching some of the new people coming in. So I'm a 13-year-old teaching very complicated physical movements to people in their 30s and 40s who have never kicked or punched before. And learning that skill, I found out in my 40s that translates to a lot of other really cool things other than just teaching martial arts. So 12 years ago, I'm in Fargo, North Dakota at this health event. And this dude who's, at the time, the CNN health and wellness correspondent, the Tennis Channel health and wellness correspondent, had written 2 New York Times best-selling books on nutrition and health. His name is Mark McDonald. I bought a bunch of his books for him to sign so I could give them away as gifts because I liked what he was talking about in his books. And Mark looked at me after this event and said, dude, you're really cool. Why aren't you teaching nutrition? And I just took that as a gentle whisper from the universe that I need to change what I'm doing. So I started learning and reading everything I could. I'd already been associated with pharmaceuticals at that time. I'd originally gone to university when I was 18 to be an organic chemist. So I liked the sciences and I liked reading and I liked learning. More so when it's for pleasure than when it was for a grade. But I started just leaning into that. Since then, in the last 12 years, I've read 800 books on health and wellness and fitness and the mindset. I've read somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 clinical trials. And I'm still reviewing some new data. And I don't know if any of that's necessary, but it makes things easier when I understand the full array of what could go wrong. And my goal isn't to replace a doctor. My goal is to help people optimize their own health. So when something is broken, their doctor can fix them quicker. That's the
Right.
whole goal. And
Yeah.
and alert people that I learned this early, radical personal accountability for everything in their life. Take full control of all of it. You're to blame for everything. Now let's move forward because
Hey,
it's easier that way.
yeah, that's amazing. And I thank you for sharing that. I know you read at least 100 books a year. You're always learning, you're always growing, and you're always progressing in this field, not just for yourself, but the real purpose is for us, so that you can help all of us live a longer, healthier, happier life. And that's what amazes me about you. Now, I want to jump into this, let's give the, the listeners some strategies to make their life better. So, one of the things you said the other day was grab some friends and go outside and move. You're not sitting there saying go run 100 miles a week or anything like that. You're just trying to get us to move a little bit more.
Yeah, well, that's the hard reset button, right? If
Right.
something goes wrong with your phone, before you go to the Apple store, Android users, I don't know where you go, but before I go to the Apple store to get my phone fixed, the recommendation is always, have you tried turning it off and turning it back on again? That little soft, gentle reset that you can do. You don't have to get a paperclip and shove the end of a paperclip in the tiny little hole or anything to reset this thing. Just turn it off and turn it back on. And the way I look at humans, because where we were designed to live, right? Or if you want to use intelligent design, or I can say where we evolved to live, if we want to use strict evolution, I think there's a middle ground there. But in either case, we weren't designed or evolved to live in here. And this is an awesome place because it's 68 degrees in my place. It's always soft when I sit on something. There's plenty of food. I'm not giving that up. But when things go wrong in here, the way we reset the human machine is to grab some people that we like, friends, family, or friends, or friends, family, or coworkers. We go outside where we came from, and then we just move. We do something fun out there with our bodies. And what we end up experiencing for a short amount of time or a long amount of time is joy and happiness. And we feel better, we look better, we act better, and then we end up doing better. And the side effects, if we do that more often than not, is it's always weight loss. That's a side effect of grabbing people that you like and moving more. You're always going to have a healthier machine when you're done. You lubricate the joints. You might, if you're doing something very physical, get bigger muscles or get faster, or get a more healthier cardiovascular response, or even if it's just walking. You're always going to end up with a better mood because the human animal, when it goes back to where it came from, does better.
Oh, that's I love that. And I like this saying you said this, and it really resonated with me and what I try to teach as well. The reason people live long is because they belong to a group where they are needed, valued, loved, and are important. How important is that for us to find our tribe?
Well, that's the end of it, right? Like everything else that we do to be healthy doesn't matter if we don't have that. And the longevity studies have shown it. The behavioral studies have shown it. If you're self-isolating, you will always start to become more sad, eat worse, not go to the gym as often. That's just the way it works. We're tribal creatures. And for hundreds of thousands of years when we lived outside, we were out there with other people who relied on us to be better. There was social pressure to perform when we lived outside, and now there isn't any. There isn't any social pressure to perform or to be your best physically or mentally, unless it's at our job, right? Job performance matters because if you want to keep your job, you have to do a certain amount of stuff. But the vast majority of people, and we're talking well over 80%, do the bare minimum because that's what society tolerates. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you right now, in your friend group, in your family group, in your work group, if you tolerate the bare minimum physically and mentally for your performance, you will always deviate towards mediocrity because of how we're programmed. We're programmed to be path of least resistance animals. Guys like David Goggins are rare. You're not going to see many people like that. He is a very rare human being because to get that kind of internal motivation, which his apparently come from his demons that he's fighting, which is great, right? But in order for him to do that, there's not that many people like that. That's why we're all not David Goggins, right? Now, if I turn the power off, Joe, this is very, very obvious. If I turn the power off, everyone in this country gets fit and healthy very quickly. We have about 3 months worth of food, and then we're all going back outside. And outside is very important to realize there is no obesity outside. Those animals die very quickly and they die first. The animals outside are the strongest of the strong, and that's the way it works out there. So while the cages that we live in are fantastic for us because they require us to do far less work, I think they're bringing about our demise, because an animal that doesn't have to simply doesn't.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what I put else in that. An animal that doesn't have to move doesn't. An animal that doesn't have to do CrossFit doesn't do CrossFit. This is why lions don't do CrossFit in Africa. I've never seen a lion doing CrossFit when I go to Africa, because they don't have to. As a matter of fact, a lion, because of where it's at in the food chain, sits around and does nothing most of the day, kind of like Americans that have food in the fridge and a little bit of money to pay their mortgage and watch the new season of 1883 on their big giant blue box. And that's the way it works. So the cages have brought great things like sanitation, right? We don't worry about mosquitoes or sanitation-borne illnesses in this country by and large. So the cages are fantastic, but they're bringing about apathy and laziness as well. And the only way we solve those problems is we get a community that stops tolerating this. Yeah. And we surround ourselves with people that push us to do better. We are stronger at 100 than we are at 1. And we need those tribes. And that's why I push so many people to do these things at work, because most people spend most of their day in this country in a work environment. And if that environment isn't doing something to push people to be healthier, then they're just going to deviate to sicker, slower, weaker every year. That's how it works. It works like that for me as well if I don't do something about it.
So the thing that amazes me is, like, we're not talking about, I'll be honest with you, I don't think it's major changes. You say it takes about 4 hours a week to make yourself happier, healthier, and all those things. Let's dive into that a little bit. But I'm somebody that needs to start moving. I'm not somebody that needs to start eating better. What are some things that you would tell me or our listeners, just some things to get started on?
Well, let me frame it first, if I may.
Okay. Yeah,
and then I'll tell you how easy. So I do two things. I'm going to do two things with our family pet, right? Because the vast majority of people that I meet are dog owners. And we can really associate these things really, really well if we just look at what our family pet is doing. So let's say if you're listening or watching this, you have a dog at home. Well, first of all, when you're at work, I know what your dog is doing. It is doing absolutely positively nothing but laying around. Your dog's not on the treadmill getting all jacked so that when you come home, it looks good for you. And your dog, if it doesn't have access to outside and free roam outside, it's laying down and doing nothing, because you, in that environment, have given it everything it needs to survive, and there's no predators. So it's got food, it's got shelter, it can sleep whenever it needs to. There's nothing preying on it. And if you did this right as a pet owner, you took away the animal's ability to want to have sex. So all of its things are taken care of. It's safe and it's got food. And you took away the other drive that animals have, which is to go make new animal. So that animal will default to doing nothing. Now, I need people to understand we're not that much different. We're just not. If you look at our DNA, dogs and humans have 6% different DNA. 94% of it's exactly the same. So we're kind of wired like our animals are that live with us in the home. And the reality is if a human has all the food and all the comfort, and it's not being preyed upon, and it has a safe place to lie down, and it's got the opportunity to have some of that, what I call box number 2, which is recreate new humans or sex. If you have those things, you're kind of done. You're going to default to sitting around and doing nothing. There's the problem, is that we're built that way. Now, here's what I tell people what they need to do to be healthy. We're going to do the same thing if your dog becomes obese or if your dog becomes sick. What are the 2 things? And I'll let you answer so that people don't hear this from me. There are only two things that we ever do if our dog is, oh my God, hey, Rocco over there is gaining some weight. What two things do you do with your dog?
Well, what my vet told me was to feed her less
Yep.
and get her out and exercise.
Okay,
Get her
so
out
you
and take
move
her
it
on a
more,
walk. Yeah,
you move it more and you feed it less, or you feed it different.
right.
Okay, done. That's it. That's the only thing a vet will ever say. A vet's never going to say, you need these 7 drugs. You need an ab blaster for your dog. You need to get it into a training program in 3 different gyms. And your vet's never going to say that.
All right.
Why, when people need to lose weight, don't they just go back to, maybe if I move it more and feed it different, it'll work? Like, I don't understand why we're overcomplicating. I mean, I do understand why we're overcomplicating this, because my industry, the health and wellness industry, needs you to buy stuff.
Right.
The pharmaceutical industry is a $1 trillion industry, and they're marketing all over the place to tell you it's okay to be sick. It's okay to be overweight. Here's some pills to fix your problem. Without us being sick, they make no money.
Right.
I wish we were all healthy so they could focus on fixing childhood cancers. Wouldn't that be a better use of our time? The problem is it's not profitable. Right. So we're going to focus on stuff that we can get continuous customers on. And I spent some time in this industry and it makes me sick. I love it because friends of mine are alive today because of modern medicine and pharmaceuticals. So I'm not going to throw that out, but I think we need to focus on root cause. Like, what's the root cause if somebody is obese? They ate too much and didn't move it enough. Same thing with our dogs. So this is what I want people to focus on. If you want to get better, I want you to pick one thing that you can do today, that you can do, that's sustainable forever. No more diets. What's sustainable forever? I'll give you 3 things to focus on that you're already doing. And this is how we start every wellness program when we do this at work. We focus on 3 things that people are doing, and we say, pick one and let's do it better. Okay? If you're not getting 8 hours of sleep, you are not serving your body. Period. End of story. It's 8. It's 8 no matter who you are. You're more likely to be struck by lightning than to have a short sleeping gene code handed down from your parents. So no, you can't get by with 6 hours. You need 8. Your kids need even more than that. I'm so sick of seeing parents when their kids get up at 5 in the morning for sports, but they went to bed at 11 or midnight because they had too much homework. We got to stop killing our children like that. They need even more sleep than we do. So that's a thing that we prioritize. And it's free, costs 0 money to stay in bed. Right? Now, I get those people that are going, I can't get that much sleep, Dan. I work 3 shifts or 2 shifts, or I have to have this extra job. I get that because for over a decade of my life, I worked 70 hours a week.
Yeah.
I understand what that's like. I came from very, very poor circumstances. There was a point in our young lives when we were very young kids that we just ate fried bread dough for days in a row because there was no food in the house. All my parents could afford was flour. Like, it was dicey. Okay. So we weren't wealthy growing up. And I know what it's like to struggle. When my mother was homeless in 1990, there were some things that had to be done. And it wasn't, hey, I just got handed $500,000 by my parents to buy my first house. That stuff didn't happen in my family. I worked for everything. So I get why some people can't sleep, but we have to do better. The second thing we ask people to do is get the hell up, stand up and move. Just stand up and move. Doesn't matter how fast. All of the studies, and I mean all of them, say it just matters if you move. It doesn't matter if you move fast. It matters if you move. So what we'll do is we'll target 10,000 to 15,000 steps a day. If you say you can't do it, you're right. That's how your silly little brain works. Our brains believe what we tell it. But if we say no matter what if I just get a standing desk and I move a lot at work? What if I get up every hour for 5 minutes and walk? You will have 10,000 steps before you even leave the office. We're more productive when we're standing. We snack less. We burn more calories when our legs are active than when they're not. All these things lead to weight loss and a better mood and more productivity. That's just how it happens when we just physically stand up. The third thing we do is just ask people to change their food. Eat the stuff your grandparents ate. End of story, period. That's the way it works. Because food 100 years ago in this country was food. Right? We ate plants, we ate animals. So these are my rules. If you can't grow it in your garden, you don't bring it in your house to eat. If you can't hunt it or fish for it, you don't bring it in your house to eat. That means people get free access to food and they don't have to worry about counting calories or making portions or, oh, I wonder what is safe to eat. Everything in your damn house is safe to eat if you only bring in plants and animals. Fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, legumes, and the whole array of the animal portfolio, whether that's eggs or fish or any dead animal. If you're one of the new people into eating crickets, you go right ahead. But it doesn't matter when we eat those things because fiber is a limiting factor. Your plants will always stop you from over consuming because of the fiber content, and the animals have protein in them, and protein is a limiting factor when it comes to how we fill up and how full we feel for how long. If we just focus on animals and plants, it doesn't have to be overcomplicated. And I put a lot of the stuff I eat out on my social feeds. Just I'm one of those weirdos that takes pictures of his food, but I do it not saying, oh, look at this delicious, amazing thing. I do it because I want to show people how easy it is. Throw a steak on your plate, put some carrots beside it, meal is finished. That's it, right? And if you want dessert, a purple sweet potato with a little bit of honey. It tastes just like dessert and it's super healthy and it's on the program. It doesn't have to be harder than that. What I found is if we focus on those three things, because everyone is already moving, eating, and sleeping, if we focus on them and do them a little better every day, I've seen people lose 70 pounds in 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah, it's not rocket surgery. We don't have to overcomplicate this. And we don't look, I kind of want people to go to the gym to build their bigger muscles. That's important if we're over the age of 40 because of what's going to happen with what's called age-related sarcopenia, which is just muscle loss as we age. I don't want people to get weaker every year. So, but we'll worry about that when people have the easy stuff taken care of and habituated, right? Once I'm in a habit of doing these things, then I can start to level up from there. We don't have to do it all at once.
And it's really simple. You simplify everything because you see on TV all these diet things and Golo and all these things, and I'm not saying anything bad about them. I don't know enough about them. So, oh, when you're talking about those things, how important is it to just do what you said? Sleep 8, move 10, eat better.
That's it. That's all you have to do. And the reason people think it doesn't work is because it doesn't work in week 1. And that's what they're looking. We're all looking for what the drugs do. Oh, I got 9 pounds of weight loss in my first week. Are you kidding me? That's not sustainable. We have to do things we can do forever. And I'll tell you, I don't need to lose any weight. As a matter of fact, I'm trying to put some muscle on. But because I don't have to lose any weight doesn't mean I just go start eating pizza burgers with French fries and milkshakes at every meal, because then I'm going to have to try to lose that weight that I'm going to gain. And I'll tell you right now, people, it goes on much faster than it comes off. So every pound you're trying to lose is 3,500 usable calories. It takes a good week to just get 1 pound off. So if you are trying to get some weight off and you're trying to be healthier, or if you're trying to get your cholesterol down, or whatever it is that you're looking for, you have to do something sustainable for 90 days and then make a reassessment. The magic is in your commitment to doing daily.
Okay. So make sure you're getting into that habit, and it takes, what is it, 21 days to form a habit?
It depends on how many exposures you get to that thing, right? I can make a habit in 7 days if I expose you to it much more often throughout the day. It just depends on the exposure. And it depends on how the dopamine and some of the other neuroreceptors are coming at me when I do that thing. So it really depends. If it's a super pleasurable event and I do it twice a day, I can form a habit in far less than 21 days. And in some instances, it might take longer. The problem is, Joe, people think eating healthy is boring. And I'm going to tell you right now, all you have to do is figure out how to be friends with me and I'll make you one of my dinners. You're going to be like, oh my God, I could have been eating like this the whole time. Yep. Absolutely. Because everyone out there thinks eating healthy because of this new ridiculous narrative. Oh, you got to be a vegan to be healthy. No, you don't. Your ancestors weren't. That's period. Plants and animals. You've got half the teeth in your mouth for doing plants, half the teeth for tearing apart flesh. You get to do both. Steak, lobster, and some asparagus is a health food if you're cooking it at home. It's
Yeah.
always better if you cook it at home. So I can have steak and lobster. I mean, just the other day, I had ground elk and ground venison mixed in a pan, pound of each. I put a bottle of Primal Kitchen steak sauce on it, cooked it up in the pan until everything was cooked, put some nice colorful peppers in there, cooked the rest of that up, poured it over a little bit of white rice, just because I'm doing a little higher carb thing this month. A little bit of white rice underneath it, little Japanese sweet potato on the side. That was dinner. As a matter of fact, I made so much food that day that was dinner for the next 3 days in a row.
Yeah.
Because I'm okay eating the same food 3 days in a row, and then I'll switch to another food. It's not as hard as we're making it, and it's not boring. My goodness, there's some amazing dishes that we can make out there, and they're healthy. And we don't have to worry about portions because the food stops you from overeating. The protein and the fiber content won't allow overeating based on the calories that you need that day. Now, to get the last 5 pounds off, we got to start weighing and measuring our food. If I have an athlete who's being paid to use their body, we have to start weighing and measuring our food. But for most people, just put a plant and an animal on your plate at every meal. That includes breakfast. None of this garbage muffin thing. Muffins are not, you can't grow muffins in your garden. They're not going to count, right?
But you do give yourself, I think you said 2 feast days a month.
Yeah, I take a couple of days to have brownies because I live in the United States, and in some states the brownies have weed in them, and then there's dragons in the kitchen because I ate the whole pan or whatever, right? I want to be able to have cereal on occasion because it brings me back to happy days of my childhood. So what I do with my clients and with myself is 2 days a month, we get to do whatever we want to with food. It's that simple. Anything. We don't bring it in the house though, because then you're going to probably overconsume the next day as well if there's leftovers. So the rule is it's today, not today and tomorrow. The 2 feast days are always a couple weeks apart. Not that hard.
Yeah.
And I still have people having pizza twice a month and losing weight, losing copious amounts of weight if they have weight to lose, because the rest of the 29 days, they're eating plants and animals.
And moving.
And moving more and getting good sleep. Sleep is one of the keys to building muscle, to losing fat. Sleep is vitally important for the body to heal, repair, and clean.
And when you're talking move, you said walking 10 to
Yeah.
15,000 steps. Is that the general rule that you have your clients do, is at least get to 10? If you can get to 15, that's okay?
Yeah, 100%. That's it. And it's 10,000 steps should be our bare minimum if you're going to eat today. If you're listening to this, if you're lucky enough to have a device in your hand or in your car or on your desktop where you can actually hear or see this podcast, you owe it to your grandchildren to move 10,000 steps a day, or don't eat, because that's how nature works. Our ancestors moved between 19,000 and 32,000 steps a day just to get food, shelter, and sex. I mean, that's just how it worked outside. And now the average American moves less than 3,000 steps a day.
So when you talk about, I want to go into a little bit on this with stress. What's the number one reason people go to the doctor?
Yeah, I mean, if we look at high blood pressure, anxiety, depression, lack of sleep, overeating, it's all stress related. And we're in a society, and I see this even from wellness people. You have to manage your stress. You have to manage your stress. You have to manage it, like it's inevitable, Joe. You just have to manage it. There's nothing you can do about it. You just have to manage it. I'm so sick of that.
Yeah.
Like, I live in a country where all I have to do is a little bit of work and I get food. Right? I get a little bit of money and then I can buy food. Nobody's shooting at me in this country, right? I'm lucky enough to be in an area of the country where nobody shoots at me on a regular basis. Okay, so what the hell do I have to stress out about? Like what? A meeting is coming up that I'm not ready for? That's made up in my head. Am I stressed about traffic in my car? Well, then I'm the problem. I shouldn't be stressing about traffic when I'm in my car. I'm the issue. I'm traffic when I'm in my car. That doesn't even make sense to me. But I'm stressed about a relationship. I'm a 53-year-old adult. I get to choose my relationships. Why would I stress about them? The reality is that most of us have stress because we have bad relationships with our environment, not because the environment is bad. We just don't have a good relationship with the environment because of two things. We're not using our tribe to help us, and we're not educated on what's going on around us. And it's literally that simple. I use examples from my own life all the time. Like when I was 5 miles out onto the Arctic Ocean, and my friend Price up near Barrow, Alaska, my buddy Price said, "Hey, when we get off the snowmobile, make sure I have my rifle in my hand." And I'm like, "Wait, what?" And it's because polar bears go 30 miles an hour and you can't see them coming. Like this is freaking me out. I'm like mildly stressed out, kind of funny, but nervous about it. And for him, it was just a Wednesday because he's used to doing that kind of thing. So we all respond differently to different environments. Something that stresses one of my friends out, I just laugh about. And it's because I have different education and different exposure, and I just use other tribe members for stuff. So I'm going to give the listeners the secret to not having stress. And I don't even know who the listeners are, so I don't know what environment you're in. The key to not having stress is getting a group of people to help shoulder the burden of what's stressing you out, and to educate yourself so that that thing isn't stressful anymore. That's the way it works with money. That's the way it works with relationships. There's education that we can get on relationships. There's education that we can get on finances. There's education we can get at work, that we should go over prepare for life so that life is easy. Yeah. There's a great book on this called The Comfort Crisis by Michael Easter. Easter, like the holiday. Michael Easter wrote a book called The Comfort Crisis, and he points out some of these things. We do have a comfort crisis. It's always comfortable. It's always soft. It's always 70 degrees. So we become softer and softer and weaker and weaker. Folks, you've heard it before. Soft times create soft people. Well, welcome to soft times in America right now.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. And now, some situations are going to be stressful no matter what. Somebody listening might be in an abusive relationship. Yes, that is very stressful. But I say the same thing. Get a tribe around you, get out of that environment and get some education. That's all, whatever way you can. My friends that are soldiers or police officers, yeah, those jobs are stressful, but they're less stressful with a team. They're less stressful with a partner. And they're way less stressful if we go in overtrained. That's why training for police officers and soldiers is so vitally important, because the more we train, the less stress we have, because we react differently to the environment. And stress in our society is nothing more than our reaction to something that's causing the brain to think that there's a bear attack. Right. And driving our hormones bonkers and making us stress eat. Nobody stress eats salads. We're stress eating a whole bag of M&Ms. We're not sleeping. We're drinking too much alcohol because we think that eliminates stress. All we have to do is go back to the basics. And the reason people aren't doing this is because it's too simple. And the media and the companies, by and large, that are marketing to us are telling us simple doesn't work. You got to have these complicated things. And yes, you have to purchase them. Simple is this. Find a group of people to help you with your problems, no matter what those are. If they're financial problems, make sure those people know finances. If you are up on the Arctic ice, make sure your buddy has a rifle and he knows polar bears, right? That's just how it works. Tribe matters when there's bears in the village. And I tell you, most people have bears in their village and they just shrug it off and drink and watch too much TV. So get a tribe around you. That's the most important thing. And then get an education on what's stressing you out. Whether that's a master class or a podcast or a book to read or an actual college course or whatever you need. Find something. There's so much free information. I have this little flat piece of glass. It's like a magic wand. I think all the information in the known universe is on this thing. All of it. Everything ever done by anyone ever is right here, and most of it's free. Yet we don't seek it out because we want to be these little victims that are like, oh, I'm so stressed out, because that gets me attention.
Yeah.
I don't hang out with victims.
Yeah. Like right now I'm stressed because my camera's not working, but we're good because you can hear me.
Dude, I hear you. And there's
and
a great image of you frozen on the screen.
yeah,
It looks like
yeah.
you're in a
So
bunker
we're
somewhere.
going to keep rolling because I want to go into sleep next. Dan, how give me 2 or 3 tips to sleep better.
Yeah, knock off the caffeine so much, right? Just check yourself before you wreck yourself with the caffeine intake because overuse of caffeine drives most people's sleep patterns to be not good. So just check in with yourself and ask yourself, can I do caffeine less?
Right.
Turn the TV off a little early. Here's an analogy I use for any of you parents out there. How many of you parents, when your kids were little, we're talking 2, 3, 4 years old, just gave your kids an iPad, a shot of Jack Daniels, and said, "Good luck, buddy," and walked out of the room, and that's how you put them to bed.
Yeah.
And parents know we didn't do that. Here's what parents know that they did with their kids: warm bath, story time. Story time did not happen with the overhead light; it happened with a dim lamp, and it was a real book, not a big giant blue thing shining in their face. So that's what I want people to go back to sleep better. You should take about an hour before bed and make it your little um, uh, quiet time, right? Warm bath or maybe even a sauna session.
Yeah.
Rinse off, get in bed, read a book, a real book with the tattooed skin of a dead tree, something like this, right? A real book. And then make sure the light is dim and kind of orangish, right? A small dim lamp in the corner. Easy. Bedroom should be dark. Bedroom should be kind of cold. It's not as complicated as we think it is. We're just trying to overcomplicate it because there's stuff to sell.
Right.
Right. Just
It's not,
take cues from nature.
it's not as complicated uh, as we make it, but it's easy to get 8 hours if we just do it right.
Yeah, it
Right.
really is. Yeah.
So let's go in. You mentioned sauna. I was
Yeah.
um, really amazed by this the other day when you talked about this. What's the advantage of a sauna?
Well, so when I get into a sauna, I'm going to heat my body up. And my body is going to then try to cool itself off so it doesn't get too hot. Well, it's going to burn energy to cool off. So that energy is always going to be from the sugar available first because it's the easiest fuel to burn. So when I do this, when I get into a sauna, I'm burning calories, which is going to assist in my weight loss. Those calories are always going to be first from sugar. So that's going to lower my total glycemic load. This is very important if somebody's fighting through prediabetes or diabetes or even metabolic syndrome. This lowers the body's sugar load. I'm always going to vasodilate when I'm in the sauna. And then when I get out, I'll slowly vasocontract back to normal. And when I do that every day, it's kind of like doing yoga for your vascular system. It leads to what they call increased vascular compliance, which just means more bendy blood vessels in there. That's happening. Your body's weak cells. You have some cells in your body that are little bitch ass cells that should have died a couple of days ago. Those cells will die when you heat up. So you're assisting your body in what's called autophagy, which is the cleanup and repair of dead and dying and weak cells. So that's happening. You're going to create heat shock proteins in the healthy cells to lower inflammatory response from the intense heat or the infrared light. So those heat shock proteins don't turn off right away when that heat stops. They stay on for about 20 hours. You're going to flush your body with things as you heat up that increase your mood. Those chemicals stay on for, there's a trailing effect out to 26 hours after a half an hour sauna session. You're going to sweat, which is one of the fastest ways to get rid of heavy metal toxicity in humans, whether that's mercury, aluminum, lead, arsenic, or whatever heavy metal you might be exposed to. And people think, well, I'm not exposed to that, Dan. Look in your deodorant. If you got aluminum in your deodorant, you're shoving it in your body every day. Look in your mouth. If you have metal in your mouth, you've got amalgam. Those, when you put coffee in there, those are going to heat up a little bit. You're going to get mercury vapors in your face. Like we get exposed to lots of chemicals and we don't realize it. This is a great, I hate the word detox, but it's a great detox for heavy metals. So I'll sum this up because there's even more, but let me just sum it up. You're going to get a better mood, more weight loss, better vascular compliance, which leads to less heart attacks and strokes directly. You're going to get a more productivity because your mood is increased. You're going to have less problems with diabetes. I'm trying to think of what could possibly go wrong by saunaing every day. And I'll tell you, the only thing that could go wrong is if you overdo it. If you're so far in there that you pass out or you have a cardiovascular event because you didn't know that you had an arrhythmia problem. So the warning on saunas is like the warning if we do intense exercise, just make sure you're within your safety bubble. But it should be kind of uncomfortable.
So you're saying about like a half hour a day, you think?
I always say a half an hour. If you can tolerate longer, tolerate longer. It's okay. The goal is to get at least 20 minutes. So, and there's a
Okay.
dose dependent curve. Those who sauna for 15 minutes do better than those who don't. Those who sauna for about a half an hour do even better. So, whatever you can tolerate in your calendar. I like doing these before bed or after a workout is a really, really great time to get in the sauna, because while you're drinking your protein shake, if it's got some CBD in it and some really good clean whey protein or collagen protein, you can maintain vasodilation, so big blood vessels, while you're feeding those hungry muscles protein and some CBD to lower the inflammatory response. It's a great way to recover. And if you are thinking of when should I sauna, right after your workout, or I like it kind of before bed. Take a nice cold rinse and get into bed. You'll cool off. That rapid cooling as you're going to bed is going to have an impact on your sleep.
And that can be a hot tub too, right? I mean, that can be kind
Yeah,
of
I
the
just
same
don't,
effect.
man, we got to do something with this chlorine though, because the chlorine is
Oh,
so
okay.
toxic on humans that if we have a non-chlorine tub that's, UV or salt water or whatever people are using now, I'm okay with that. But I'd still love the infrared sauna, because the infrared sauna, the waves will absorb into the skin and other tissues 2 full inches in every direction in an infrared unit. So if I can get
What
two
about
inch,
just, oh, go ahead. I'm
yeah.
sorry. Go ahead.
Well,
Go
if I
ahead.
can get 2 inch wave absorption, it's better than just heating the outside.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what is it? I've seen these red light therapy
Yeah.
things now. What is the advantage of the red light therapy?
Yeah, and that's going to be different than infrared heat.
Okay.
But my friends over at Sunlight do both. They do both red light in their saunas and infrared heat, so you're getting the benefits of both. And it's funny because this is a man. We could do an hour on this, but light and heat are on the same spectrum. It's just how far over are you going? So the red light is nearer to the non-heat spectrum of red light that has a beneficial effect as well, including reducing inflammatory response and increasing the amount of capillaries or angiogenesis that we're seeing. It works very, very similarly, but through some different pathways than the infrared heat would do.
So the red light's good.
Red light's good, but
Yeah.
if we're trying to get some of this cellular autophagy and some of the vasodilation and some of the sweating going on, we're going to need the heat,
Okay.
without a doubt. And
Because I
if you can
remember you
combine,
saying the other day that the red light might be able to help you grow your hair back.
yeah, there are some hair protocols with red light. If you're using like platelet-rich plasma and doing PRP injections into your scalp and then using red light therapy, you might absolutely. I have no interest in growing my hair back, although my hair was gorgeous when I had it. Because I have a good shaped head, I can keep it bald, and then
Yeah.
people think I'm tougher with bald hair, so I'm okay with that. I'll wear the costume of a tough guy, even though I'm not.
Okay, next thing, and we're kind of running out of time here.
Yeah,
We're going fast. Water.
yeah.
How much water do I need to drink a day?
The official beverage of every animal on the planet,
That's right.
except,
Yeah.
except humans. We drink iced tea, soda, and alcohol, and we think, oh, we're doing okay.
Yeah.
Uh, we like people to target about 3 liters of water a day. So in American, that's about 100 ounces. But I tell people, get one of the new $3,000 Stanley cups or whatever they're selling those stupid mugs for. Get one of those. Get one of those things that are a liter big. Fill it 3 times. And if
Okay.
you can, put some minerals in some of that, right? There's some great brands of low sugar mineral additives that you can add to your water. If you like a little bit of flavor in your water, those are a great way to do it. And then we just try to, if we're going for 3 liters, anything with caffeine, alcohol, or too much sugar just isn't going to count towards our water intake, because those things tend not to hydrate us very well.
So we've gone over food, we've gone over movement, we've gone over sleep, how you can sleep better, in the water that kind of fuels us. I say this a lot, and I did a presentation to a group the other night on Monday night, And I have this stick, and it's a light stick. And when I hold both ends of it, it turns on because my body gives it energy. My body is the one that turns it on.
Right.
And I tell people, I didn't stop at the gas station to fill up. I didn't plug myself into a wall.
Yeah.
I think it's a miracle that our heart beats how many times it does a day, and we're not plugged into anything. We're not hooked to a battery bank. Your body really is just a miracle. You can see things, you can hear things, you can process things. Taking care of it the way you're talking about, because it is such a special gift. Your body, when you think about it, is amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, we only get one of these. Let me wrap this up from my side with one analogy. If you want to see what your diet, your food and drink, like I'm talking everything you drink and everything you eat, if you want to see the direct effect of this in less than 2 weeks, here's what I want you to do. First of all, if you do this experiment, you will get probably, if your friends find out, you'll probably get arrested. But try this anyway. If you want to see the impact, I want you to take everything you eat and drink and give it to your dog for 2 weeks. Now, there's a caveat. You don't have somebody controlling your intake of food and drink, so you can't control your dog's intake. You can't portion this out for them. Everything you eat, I need you to give your dog free access to everything you eat. When you eat it, as often as you eat it, and I need you to give your dog free access to everything you drink, including the Jack Daniels and the wine. And you tell me in 2 weeks' time what's going to happen to that animal, because it's happening to humans as well. It's just happening slower because we're larger and we tolerate a little bit more of these assaults on a daily basis to our health. So we get one body that's supposed to last us 100-ish years, and we're abusing it to the point where the average American is dying in their mid-70s. It's time we stop. It's time we stand up and go, nobody's going to do this for me. I got to do something. And just go do something that you can do forever with small 2 times a month deviations. Not a big deal.
All right.
It's easier than we're making it because we like to make excuses for stuff, because that reinforces why we are where we are, because the brain doesn't want us to live in that pain of, oh my God, I could have been doing something different the whole time. We just like, well, no, this is hard. Well, no, this is hard. Well, there's always an excuse. Quit making excuses and just go. Surround yourself with people that'll help you go, that won't tolerate your mediocrity, and just go.
And I love your analogy of the car. When
Yeah.
you got your first car. Give that analogy real quick to
Yeah.
people.
Okay. So let's just pretend on Earth, in this country, let's do in this country, that if when you're 16, you were given a car, the government gave you one, and it was a really nice car, like the nicest car they made that year. But that's the only car you ever got for the rest of forever. If you damaged it, if you hit a tree, if it ran out of oil and the engine seized up, you could fix it, but you'll never get a new car ever. How good of drivers would we see in this country? How well would we maintain that vehicle, knowing that from age 16 to whenever you die, hopefully 80, 90 years later, you had the same car? We would all be taking care of that thing so well. We'd be waxing it every weekend. We'd be changing the oil way more than we should. We know we would. Everybody knows that. But when I say, well, that car is your body, you only get one of them, people are like, yeah, whatever. No big deal.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, we take it for granted.
Yeah. And it's a big deal because of why you woke up.
Right.
Because your job here on Earth, in this meat suit that we get to wear around for about 100 years, you're made of stardust, and something's driving the meat suit and we don't know what it is. It might be the bacteria, who knows? But your job is to keep this thing in such good form that you can do stuff for others.
Right.
That's the goal. That's what makes us happy.
Right. It does make us happy. I always tell people, you find your purpose when your purpose is greater than yourself.
It has to be. Otherwise, what's the point? What,
Right.
to accumulate things, pay taxes, and die?
Yeah.
Ugh.
That's
I'm
why
ready
we're
for
here.
something more. Yeah.
Wow, you're amazing. I knew this was going to be great. You're going to help so many people. I got 3 questions for you and we'll be done.
Okay, let's do
First
it.
question is, what is your purpose in life?
I wake up every day so people don't die like my parents. My dad died of lung cancer at 56. He was smoking and drinking, and that drove his cancer. My mother died at 74 of 7 diseases at the same time. Mom drank 2 liters of soda and ate French fries every day, never worked out, never exercised, never even really walked, and slept less than 4 hours a day. She's dead.
Yeah.
Dad's dead. My job when I wake up every day is to make sure one person somewhere on earth here's a message that they change their behavior because of and live longer. That's my
Wow.
own goal.
Amazing. What's your passion? What do you
That
love to do?
well, I love to scuba dive, man. I
Yeah.
kickboxing and scuba diving and you name it. But one of my biggest things that we're doing this year is we're building an orphanage in India
There you
because
go.
India has a problem with throwing babies in dumpsters if they're girls. And we're going to try to solve that for at least some people.
Right.
So we're building it. If somebody wants to help with that, you just send me a message, and we can use all the help we can get. So that's a big passion of mine.
I always say that your purpose and passion kind of equal each other.
I
And
kind of do.
you just
Yeah.
showed that.
Yeah.
And what holds it together, the glue that holds it together is your perspective.
Yeah.
So what's your
Absolutely.
perspective on life?
I think I'll go this country because I travel the world and I see other places. My perspective is that there's abundance out there and there's joy out there at every corner. Whenever we wake up, if we're here in this country, we're doing okay. So let's stop complaining, take control of our own behaviors, and that'll take control of our own health, and then go use those healthy gifts that we have to go change the lives of somebody else.
Yeah.
And we should all be doing that together.
I
I
always
see
say
that
a
yeah.
life well lived is using the gifts that you're given in the service of others.
Amen.
And your goal,
Yeah.
follow my journey. I want to live to 130 years old, and your last day on earth is what?
I'll either die in a fiery motorcycle crash or scuba diving, or fall asleep in a rocking chair holding my great great granddaughter.
Yeah.
One of those, right? The goal is to get to 130. And look, some people are like, that's ridiculous. But my people that I know that study longevity in humans, they're like, that might be a low goal, Dan. You might need to readjust that upward.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's your goal.
Yeah.
Amazing. How can people get a hold of you, Dan? I know you have a newsletter and stuff that people need to subscribe to and get
Yeah.
some wisdom from you on a more regular basis, and or you can come speak to their business or their groups, or you're the number one Vistage speaker. That's where I heard you was in our Vistage group, and amazing speaker because you do it with such passion. How do people get a hold of you?
Yeah, danmiller.tv. That's the best way to find me. danmiller.tv as in television. All my social links are in the upper right-hand corner of every page. You can join my mailing list in the upper right-hand corner of every page. But I've got all kinds of stuff for you to do there. My media page is loaded with interviews and podcasts and stuff. And then, all of the other programs and supplements and recommendations I have are all on there. So that's
Amazing,
the best
man.
place to do it.
Dan, I thank you. You know, I know your time is limited, and for you to take your time to come on our podcast today is amazing. And I really would like to do another podcast and dive more into your mindset.
Yeah, let's do it whenever you're ready.
What makes Dan tick?
That's right.
I know we gave people today how to make their lives better. I want to dive in a little bit more with you next time on the mindset and overcoming adversities and those kind of things, because I know you've had some adversities and those things, and I really like diving into that part of it too. So we're gonna schedule another one. But I appreciate you so much for coming on.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you, and I appreciate anyone that's watching or listening to this. It means a lot to me that somebody would spend an hour with me. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
And for everyone listening, thank you so much for listening to this week's edition of the People Progressing Podcast. Even though my camera froze, we still had an amazing day. And share this episode with people, download it. People need to hear this. Dan's on a quest to make people's lives better, healthier, and so forth. And the more you can share this, the better off we are. So thank you so much for listening today. And please, please, please keep progressing on a daily basis. Thank you so much and have a great day.